What if your energy was never random? What if every moment of exhaustion, attraction, fear, intuition, and inner pressure was part of a map your body has been drawing your entire life? Ancient traditions did not see the body as dead matter carrying a mind. They saw it as a living field, a hidden current, a system of signals most people feel every day but never learn how to read. And this is where everything changes. Because if energy moves through attention, emotion, breath, and memory, then your life is not only shaped by what happens to you, it is shaped by what your body keeps repeating without your permission. The tension in your chest, the weight in your stomach, the heat in your hands, the sudden pull toward or away from someone. These may not be accidents. Today, we are opening the ancient map of energy, not as fantasy, not as blind belief, but as a symbolic anatomy of the invisible forces moving beneath your thoughts. And once you understand how your energy works, you may never experience your body, your emotions, or your reality the same way again. What you are about to explore is not a theory. It is a map. And like all true maps, it does not create the territory. It reveals what was already there. This video will move through the body itself, through attention, emotion, breath, and perception, and it will show you how ancient traditions encoded the living experience of energy inside symbolic diagrams that have survived for thousands of years. These were not decoration. They were instruction manuals for the inner world, written before the language of psychology existed. You will come to understand what those maps were pointing at, not through blind faith, but through the recognition of something you have already felt. The exhaustion after a conversation that left you hollow. The sudden clarity that arrived like a signal from somewhere deeper than your thoughts. The way a room can change the moment a certain person walks into it. These are not coincidences. They are the map revealing itself. And by the end of this exploration, you will have language for what you have always sensed but never fully named. But here is where the promise becomes unexpected. The deepest insight in this video is not about gaining energy, increasing it, or controlling it through force. The deepest insight is about stopping the unconscious leak. Because most people are not losing energy to dramatic events or spiritual enemies. They are losing it slowly, steadily, invisibly, through patterns of attention they have never examined. That is what this map was designed to reveal, and that is exactly where we are going. When most people hear the word energy, they place it in one of two boxes. Either it belongs to science, measured in calories and electrical output, or it belongs to mysticism. Something vague and glowing that floats above the body and can be aligned with crystals or positive thoughts. Both of these frames are incomplete. And the incompleteness is not innocent. It keeps you from understanding something your nervous system has been trying to communicate your entire life. Consider what actually happens inside you throughout a single day. You wake from sleep and something in your chest is already heavy before a single thought has formed. You enter a conversation and your throat tightens without a clear reason. You walk into a building and your shoulders rise without any command from your mind. You think about a certain memory and your breathing changes. None of this is mystical. None of this is vague. This is energy moving through the body in real time, following invisible channels your conscious mind rarely stops to examine. The reframe that changes everything is this: energy is not something you have or do not have. It is something you are constantly directing, mostly without knowing it. Every moment of attention is a movement of energy. Every emotional reaction is a current. Every pattern of thought is a repeated frequency running through the body. The question is not whether energy exists inside you. The question is whether you are the one choosing where it goes. What ancient maps understood and what modern life has nearly erased is that the human being is not a passive container. You are not a vessel that fills up on good days and empties on bad ones. You are a dynamic system, a living architecture of signals, responses, postures, memories, and intentions all moving at once. The chaos most people feel inside is not proof that energy is random. It is proof that no one taught them how to read the current running beneath the surface of their daily life. Most people, when they try to explain why they feel drained, reach for the simplest available answer. They blame the job. They blame the week. They blame the difficult person they had lunch with. They tell themselves they are an introvert or an empath or simply someone who needs more rest than others. These explanations are not wrong in a surface sense, but they stop at the edge of something far deeper. And because they stop there, nothing actually changes. The same exhaustion returns on a different Tuesday, wearing a slightly different mask. When something draws your attention powerfully, whether that is a person, a place, a creative idea, or an inexplicable feeling of dread, the common framework offers a clean label: chemistry, anxiety, inspiration, depression. Modern life has become extraordinarily efficient at naming inner states and extraordinarily poor at understanding what those states are actually pointing toward. A label gives the illusion of understanding without requiring the deeper work of observation. You call it anxiety and move on. But the signal beneath the anxiety, the actual message the body was sending, never gets heard. There is a particular kind of emotional heaviness that many people carry for years without examining its structure. It sits in the chest or the gut. It arrives in certain situations and not others. It can feel like grief, like longing, like dread, or like a pressure with no name. And the common interpretation is that this heaviness is simply part of the personality, an emotional trait, a feature of who you are, rather than a signal of where your energy is trapped. The body, in this view, is a symptom machine, not a map. Modern life reinforces this misreading in a very specific way. It trains you to override bodily signals with cognitive explanations. You feel tension in your chest, and rather than pausing to investigate it, you scroll your phone, make a list, or rationalize why the feeling makes sense given your circumstances. The body is treated as unreliable, as something that overreacts, as a system to be managed rather than listened to. This is not accidental. It is a trained reflex. And it creates a population of people who are deeply out of relationship with the current running through them. The result of this disconnection is a very particular kind of exhaustion that rest does not fix. You sleep and still feel heavy. You take a vacation and the weight follows you onto the plane. You change your environment and the pattern rebuilds itself around you within weeks. And the explanation that stays lodged in the mind is, this is just life. This is just who I am. This is just the cost of being awake in a demanding world. But what if none of that is true? What if the exhaustion is a signal, and the signal has a specific origin? When you look at how attraction works in most people's frameworks, the picture becomes even clearer. People experience a powerful pull toward another person and call it chemistry. They experience sudden inspiration and call it a good mood. They experience a quiet inner knowing and dismiss it as wishful thinking. They experience a sharp drop in energy around a certain situation and push through it with coffee and willpower. None of these responses address the actual movement happening beneath the surface. They manage the signal without reading it. An energy that is managed rather than understood does not disappear. It accumulates. It shifts shape, and eventually, it demands to be noticed through something louder than a quiet warning. Here is the problem with every surface explanation for how you feel. If the exhaustion were truly random, if it were truly caused by the specific week or the specific person or the specific job, then changing those things would solve it. But most people notice, usually after years of trying, that the problem follows them. A new relationship carries the same hidden tension. A new job recreates the same invisible pressure. A different city somehow produces the same emotional weather. This is not bad luck. This is a pattern. And patterns have architecture. The word pattern is important here because it changes the question. If something is random, you endure it and wait for it to pass. But if something is a pattern, it means it is being generated. Something is creating it, sustaining it, and reproducing it across different circumstances. And the thing most people never investigate is this. Patterns that follow you across contexts are not caused by the outside world. They are produced by an inner structure that the outside world activates. The world does not create your pattern. It triggers what is already running inside you. This is where the standard explanation begins to collapse. Because if your exhaustion was simply the result of hard work, then equally hard-working people would feel equally drained. But they do not. Two people can walk through an identical day and emerge with completely different energetic states. One person leaves a conversation feeling sharp and alive. Another leaves the same conversation feeling hollow. The difference is not in the conversation. It is in the invisible inner mechanics each person brought to it. Energy is not responding to events. It is responding to the inner pattern that meets those events. Consider what happens to attention in the average human day. It moves constantly, pulled by notifications, by memories, by future fears, by the noise of other people's urgency. And each time attention moves, energy moves with it. This is the hidden law that most people have never been told. Attention is not passive. It is not a neutral lens you point at things. It is a directive force. Where your attention goes, energy flows. And if your attention is being pulled in every direction from the moment you wake, then your energy is fragmenting in real time. Not because you are weak, but because no one taught you that attention requires guardianship. The deeper failure of the surface explanation is that it treats energy as a quantity rather than a direction. People think in terms of how much energy they have, as though it is a tank that fills and empties. But the ancient maps did not describe energy that way. They described it as a current, something with direction, momentum, and pattern. The question was never how much energy you have. The question was always where it is moving, what it is feeding, and whether it is circling back to you or flowing away into structures that never return it. What breaks the surface explanation completely is the phenomenon of repetition. The same emotional loop appearing in different years. The same relational dynamic with different faces attached to it. The same inner contraction in situations that seem completely unrelated on the surface. Ancient traditions recognize this as the signature of unconscious energy directing itself without the observer's awareness. The body keeps replaying the pattern because the pattern was never seen clearly enough to release. And until you see it, you will keep explaining it away with surface reasons, and the current beneath will keep running without your direction. If something in these words is landing in a place that already knows what you're hearing, if you can feel that there is a current running beneath your daily experience that you have never quite been able to name, then write the words, "I see the current," in the comments below. Not as a performance, not as a trend, but as a moment of recognition between you and yourself. Let it be the first act of honest observation in this exploration. This channel exists for people who feel the pressure of a deeper pattern and refuse to keep pretending it is not there. If that is you, you already know it. And writing those words is not about engaging with an algorithm. It is about marking the moment you chose to look directly at what has always been moving beneath the surface of your life. Thousands of years before modern neuroscience, before anatomy textbooks, before psychological diagnosis, human beings across entirely separate civilizations arrived at remarkably similar conclusions about the inner life of the body. In India, the ancient system of yoga described channels of subtle energy running through the body called nadis, and identified concentrated centers of energy activity along the spine that were later called chakras, meaning wheels of moving force. In China, the tradition of Taoism described the flow of qi, a vital current, moving through invisible pathways called meridians. In Egypt and in the Hermetic tradition, the body was mapped as a field of nested forces connected to consciousness itself. These maps did not share a common language, but they shared a common observation. The body is not a passive object. It is a dynamic field of moving intelligence. What is significant about these ancient traditions is not that they invented supernatural explanations for the body. It is that they were attempting to describe something experiential, something felt, something that practitioners noticed through sustained, careful attention to their inner life over time. The ancient map was not drawn from imagination. It was drawn from observation. And the observation was this: when human beings turn their attention inward with discipline and honesty, they begin to notice that different regions of the body seem to carry different qualities of experience, and that those qualities are not random. The hands, in many ancient traditions, were understood as instruments of energy transmission and reception. Think of what the hands do in human experience. They reach out, they create, they push away, they draw close, they labor, and they heal. Every tradition of energy healing from every culture on Earth has centered on the hands as a primary interface between inner energy and the outer world. This is not coincidence. The hands are the edge of the body where intention becomes action, and where the inner current meets the material world. The heart region carries a particular importance across virtually every ancient map. Not the organ itself, though the organ is remarkable, but the energetic center associated with it, located in the middle of the chest. This is the region where human beings most often feel love, grief, longing, compassion, and the specific weight of emotional truth. When something matters deeply, you feel it there. When something is lost, you feel it there. When someone is lying to you and something in you knows, you often feel the first signal there before your thoughts catch up. The ancient maps place this region at the center of the entire energetic system because it functions as the mediator between the lower instincts of survival and the higher functions of consciousness and awareness. The spine was seen as the central channel of the entire system, a vertical axis along which the fundamental current of life energy was said to travel. In the yogic tradition, this current was called Kundalini, often described symbolically as a sleeping force that, when activated through practice, awareness, and inner alignment, moves upward through the spine and illuminates the entire system. Whether you understand this literally or symbolically, the underlying observation holds. The spine is the structural core of your nervous system, and the quality of your posture, your breathing, your sense of aliveness in any given moment is directly connected to the state of that vertical channel in your body. The throat was understood as the threshold between inner experience and outer expression. It is the place where what lives inside you either finds its voice or is suppressed back into silence. Many people carry chronic tension in the throat and neck without ever connecting that tension to the things they have left unsaid, the truths they have swallowed, the voice they have trained themselves to silence in order to be acceptable to others. Ancient maps understood this physically located experience as a significant signal about the relationship between inner energy and outer expression. The forehead and the region between the eyes carried associations with perception itself, with the capacity to see patterns beneath the surface of events, to recognize what is not obvious, to sense what is approaching before it arrives. This is the region that many contemplative traditions associate with what might be called the faculty of the witness, the observer within you that can see your own thinking without being identical to it. Whether or not you accept any metaphysical interpretation of this, the experiential reality it points to is profound. There is a part of you capable of observing your own patterns, and learning to locate and strengthen that capacity may be among the most important things a human being can do. What the ancient map reveals, when you hold it not as dogma but as symbolic anatomy, is that the body has always been understood as a map of consciousness itself. The regions, the currents, the centers, these are not mystical inventions. They are symbolic descriptions of real, felt interior experiences that every human being has access to. The map does not create the territory. The territory was always there. The map simply teaches you how to read what your body has been showing you all along. Long before the body produces a conscious thought, it has already begun to respond. This is one of the most important discoveries in the study of human experience, and the ancient maps encoded it thousands of years before modern science arrived at the same door. Your body is not waiting for your mind to tell it how to feel. In many cases, your body has already decided, already contracted or opened, already shifted its chemistry and posture and breathing. And the mind arrives later to name what the body has already enacted. This means that if you only work with thoughts, you're working on the surface of a much deeper system. The nervous system is the body's primary intelligence network, and it does something remarkable. It keeps records. Every significant experience you have ever had, every fear that was confirmed, every moment of love, every encounter with threat, every episode of being seen or being ignored has left an imprint in the nervous system. Not as a stored memory file you can consciously access, but as a pattern of reactivity, a tuning of the system's response thresholds. Your nervous system has been shaped by everything that happened before this moment, and it is using that shaping right now in real time to interpret every signal coming towards you from the environment. This is why two people can stand in the same room and have completely different bodily experiences. One person's nervous system reads the room as safe. Another person's reads it as a potential threat. Neither response is wrong in itself. Both are the products of accumulated pattern. What matters is whether you are aware that the interpretation is happening, whether you can observe the lens through which your body is reading the world, rather than simply living inside that lens, as though it were the unmediated truth of the situation. Posture is one of the most underestimated dimensions of the body-mind connection. The way you hold your spine in the presence of uncertainty, whether you collapse or stand, whether your chest opens or closes, whether your chin drops or lifts, is not merely a physical position. It is a signal to the entire system about the energetic quality of the moment. Ancient traditions understood this with precision. The inner posture of the warrior and the inner posture of the victim are not just psychological metaphors. They are different physiological states, different breathing patterns, different hormonal environments, different qualities of attention. How you hold the body shapes how the mind reads reality. Breathing is the most direct and accessible interface between conscious awareness and the involuntary systems of the body. This is why every serious contemplative tradition in human history, without exception, has centered on the breath as the primary instrument of inner work. The breath is the one biological function that operates automatically and can also be deliberately controlled. And when you change the breath, you change the entire system. You shift the nervous system from one mode to another. You alter the quality of attention. You change the emotional weather of the body. The ancient maps always pointed to breath as the hidden lever of the entire energetic system. And this is not metaphor, it is architecture. Emotional memory is carried in the body, not only in the brain. This is a recognition that psychology has been moving toward for decades, and that ancient traditions stated plainly from the beginning. The grief you never fully felt accumulates somewhere in the chest or the throat. The anger you were not permitted to express lives in the jaw, the shoulders, the fists. The fear you learned to push past rather than process often settles in the gut and the lower body, creating a chronic baseline of subtle contraction that shapes how you move through the world without you ever consciously choosing it. These are not poetic observations. They are the direct result of unprocessed energy seeking a location in the body because it was never allowed to complete its natural movement. The body reacts before the conscious mind understands. This is the sentence worth sitting with. You know this from experience. You have felt dread before your thoughts identified the cause. You have felt joy in your chest before your mind assembled the reason. You have felt the presence of something wrong in a situation your logical mind was actively arguing was fine. The body is reading a layer of information that the thinking mind does not always have access to. Ancient traditions called this a form of knowing. And learning to hear that knowing without immediately overriding it with rational explanations is one of the most significant skills a human being can develop. What this means for understanding your energy is direct and important. You cannot separate energy from the body. The body is not the cage of the energy. The body is the instrument through which the energy speaks, moves, and can eventually be understood. Every contraction is information. Every expansion is information. Every shift in your breathing during a difficult conversation is information. Every heaviness in your chest when a particular subject arises is information. The body is not failing you when it does these things. It is the ancient map in real time, drawing the current for you to see if you are willing to stop long enough to look. Energy is not controlled by force. This is the first revelation the ancient map delivers to anyone who approaches it honestly. Every tradition that mapped the inner energetic system, without exception, taught that force applied to energy creates resistance, not flow. You cannot command the current. You cannot discipline it into submission. You cannot override the body's signals with willpower alone and call that mastery. What force produces is suppression. And suppression is not control. It is energy that has been pushed underground, where it continues to move without your awareness, building pressure in regions of the body and the psyche that you can no longer see. The real relationship with energy begins with something far more subtle than force. It begins with attention, with honest, non-reactive observation of what the body is already doing. When you bring genuine, patient awareness to a contraction in the chest, something begins to shift in that contraction, not because you commanded it to shift, but because awareness itself is a form of energy, and when it is directed without judgment into a tense or frozen place, it creates the conditions for that place to begin to move again. This is what the ancient traditions were teaching. Not domination of the inner world, relationship with it. The reason most people fail to understand their own energy is not because the ancient map is too complex. It is because they are trying to use the wrong tool. They are trying to think their way into energetic clarity. But energy is not a logical problem. It is a relational phenomenon. It responds to presence, not logic. It responds to honest observation, not analysis. It responds to a quality of inner listening that most people have never been trained to sustain. And the moment you begin to offer that quality of listening to your own body, to your own breath, to your own emotional signals, the map begins to become legible. You cannot understand your energy while ignoring the body that carries it. This may be the most practically important sentence in this entire exploration, because most people who want to understand energy begin by looking outward, toward theories, systems, explanations, and frameworks. But the ancient map is not primarily pointing outward. It is pointing inward. It is saying the instrument of understanding is not in a book. It is in the body you are already living in. And the first act of real energetic intelligence is simply learning to turn your attention toward that body with patience, with honesty, and without the demand that it immediately makes sense. There is a kind of conversation that leaves you feeling as though something was taken from you. You cannot always name what happened. The words that were exchanged might have been ordinary. Nothing dramatic occurred. But when it ended and you were alone again, you noticed that something inside you was quieter, smaller, more contracted than it was before. The room felt heavier. Your thinking moved more slowly. And no matter how many times you walked away from that particular person or that particular kind of interaction feeling exactly this way, you kept returning to it, kept agreeing to it, kept absorbing the cost of it as though it was simply the price of connection. This is energy without direction. This is the current giving itself away without awareness of where it is going. Creative flow is the other side of this same current. You know what it feels like when something opens inside you and the energy moves without resistance. A problem that seemed impossible suddenly reveals its solution. A piece of writing or music or design arrives not from effort, but from a kind of presence, as though you stepped out of the way and something moved through you. Athletes call it the zone. Mystics call it grace. Psychologists call it flow. All of these names are pointing at the same experiential reality, a state in which attention is completely unified. The body is not fighting itself, and energy moves with the quality of effortless clarity. Most people experience this only accidentally. The ancient map was designed to help you understand its conditions so that it does not remain a random gift. Anxiety has a signature in the body that is worth learning to read rather than simply dreading. It is not only a feeling of fear, it is a specific pattern of where the energy is moving and what it is doing. In most people, anxiety involves a contraction in the chest, a tightening in the throat or stomach, a rapid movement of attention from the present moment into imagined futures, and a quality of breath that has become shallow and fast. All of this is the body's energy organizing itself around a perceived threat. The ancient maps understood this as the survival current being activated, and what they taught was not to eliminate this response, which is impossible, but to become familiar with its signature so that you can recognize it without being consumed by it and eventually observe it without automatically obeying it. Emotional attachment is one of the most complex energy patterns in human experience. When you are attached, not in the loving sense, but in the sense of clinging, of needing a specific outcome, of feeling that your inner stability depends on something outside yourself remaining a certain way, then your energy is in a constant state of expenditure. You are perpetually spending energy monitoring the situation, preparing for loss, defending against change, and managing the anxiety of a system that has made its equilibrium dependent on something it cannot control. The ancient traditions were extraordinarily precise about this. They did not say, attachment is wrong. They said attachment is costly, and the cost is paid in energy that could otherwise be available for presence, creativity, and clarity. Physical tension is one of the clearest real-time indicators of where energy is stuck in your system. Right now, without making it a dramatic exercise, simply notice where your body is holding. Are your shoulders drawn up toward your ears? Is your jaw clenched? Is there a tightness across the chest or a gripping in the stomach? These are not random muscular events. They are the energetic map showing you in real time where attention has been consistently directed, where unresolved patterns have taken up residence in the tissue of the body. The ancient maps were read in exactly this way, not as abstraction, as direct observation of what the body is doing in the present moment. Intuition is energy that has not yet been translated into language. This is one of the most important reframings available to you. When you feel something that you cannot explain, a pull toward or away from a person, a quiet knowing that a situation is not what it appears to be, a sudden certainty that arrives without logical support. You are receiving information through the energetic layer of your awareness. Most people either dismiss this information because it lacks rational justification, or they dramatize it, treating it as mystical revelation. The ancient map offers a third approach. Take it seriously as data, not as absolute truth, but as a signal from a part of your intelligence that reads a layer of reality your thinking mind is not always fast enough to catch. The places where you lose energy most consistently are rarely the places that look the most dramatic. It is rarely the crisis that depletes you most thoroughly. More often, it is the slow, steady, barely visible leak. The relationship that never quite feels safe, but that you never quite leave. The environment that grinds against something in you every single day. the thought pattern that revisits the same wound on a 3-hour cycle. The habit of making yourself smaller in order to be tolerated by people whose approval you have decided you require. These are the real locations of energetic depletion. Quiet, structural, invisible to anyone who does not know how to read the map. The moment you begin to notice these patterns without immediately judging them or trying to fix them, something important happens. The energy that was held in the tension of the pattern begins to have room. Not because the pattern disappears, but because awareness has entered the system. And awareness, when it is honest and patient, does not leave the pattern unchanged. It is the quiet beginning of everything that the ancient map was designed to initiate. A relationship between the observer inside you and the current that has been running through you, mostly without your conscious knowledge, for your entire life. If this exploration is opening something in you, if these words are giving language to something you have carried without a name, then consider staying in this current. Subscribe to this channel, not as a passive gesture, but as a deliberate choice to keep moving deeper into what most people spend their entire lives on the surface of. Every video on this channel is another passage into the hidden architecture beneath the ordinary, and you do not have to walk it alone. The hidden current runs continuously. New explorations into consciousness, energy, identity, and the invisible forces shaping your inner life arrive regularly here. If this is the conversation you have been searching for, this is the place. Stay close. The cost of not understanding your energy is not theoretical. It is the exhaustion you feel on a Sunday evening before the week has even started. It is the recurring sense that something is being wasted, that life is moving past you while you manage the surface of it rather than inhabiting its depth. This is not dramatic language. This is the honest description of what chronic energetic depletion produces in a human life, and it deserves to be named clearly rather than softened into something more comfortable. When you do not understand where your energy is going, you make reactive choices. You reach for stimulation because the depletion feels like boredom. You escalate conflict because the numbness feels like safety. You chase intensity because it produces the sensation of being alive, even when the intensity is destructive. This is one of the most dangerous patterns the ancient maps were designed to address: the confusion between intensity and aliveness. Intensity is not the same as energy. It is often the signal that the system is under pressure, not that it is thriving. Attachment to draining situations is one of the most painful products of energetic blindness. When you do not understand the pattern, you cannot see that the situation itself is the pattern's preferred environment. You stay because leaving feels like the unknown, and the unknown feels more frightening than the familiar pain. You rationalize the cost with the belief that more effort or more love or more time will eventually change the dynamic. But a pattern does not change through endurance. It changes through awareness. And you cannot become aware of a pattern you are too exhausted to observe. There is a particular kind of confusion that arises when someone has been energetically depleted for long enough. They begin to lose the ability to distinguish between their own signal and the noise coming from outside them. They absorb other people's emotional states without realizing it. They react to situations not because of what is actually happening, but because of what the situation resembles from their past, and the nervous system does not differentiate clearly between the memory and the present moment. This confusion is the direct consequence of operating without a map. Without the ability to read the current, every river looks the same. The chronic cost also shows up in the body in ways that feel unrelated to energy. The jaw that is always tight, the sleep that never feels complete, the appetite that fluctuates with emotional weather, the persistent low-grade tension across the shoulders that no amount of physical stretching seems to permanently relieve. These are not separate problems. They are the body speaking the same sentence in different languages. And the sentence is, the current is not flowing freely. Something is holding. Something needs attention. And the body will keep repeating that sentence in ever louder terms until it is heard. What makes this cost most significant is not the suffering it produces. It is the silence it creates. When the energy is consumed in maintaining depletion, there is nothing left for the deeper life, for genuine connection, for creative engagement with the world, for the kind of presence that makes another person feel truly met, for the quiet interior life that every human being carries the potential for but rarely reaches, because reaching it requires energy that has been spent elsewhere for a very long time. The ancient map was not drawn to help people optimize their performance. It was drawn to help people recover access to the depth of their own life. And that recovery begins with seeing clearly what the cost of the current pattern actually is. Here is the shift that changes everything. Energy is not a force that comes from somewhere outside you, and it is not something you earn through the right habits or beliefs. It is the current already moving through you, shaped by the quality of your attention, structured by the patterns of your nervous system, expressed through your breath, your posture, your emotional responses, and the direction of your awareness in any given moment. The mystery was never in locating energy. The mystery, the real one, was in understanding that you are already it, and that the question was always about relationship, not acquisition. Most people approach their inner life the way a person approaches a machine they do not understand. They push buttons, apply force, try different inputs, hope for different outputs, and grow frustrated when the system does not respond as expected. But the inner energetic system is not a machine. It is a living field. And a living field responds to relationship differently than to force. It responds to presence. It responds to honest observation. It responds to the quality of attention you bring to it, not to the intensity of your desire to change it. The reversal the ancient map offers is a reorientation of where you look first. Before you ask what you should do differently, it asks you to observe what you're already doing. Before you try to add new energy, it asks where you are currently losing it. Before you seek new patterns, it asks you to see the old ones clearly. This is not a passive process. It is a profoundly active one. Observation of this depth requires real presence. But it is active in the mode of awareness, not in the mode of control. And that difference is everything. Control, as most people practice it, is an attempt to manage the outer surface of experience to prevent discomfort. You control your environment, your schedule, your relationships, your image, all in service of keeping the inner system at a tolerable temperature. But this is not energetic mastery. This is energetic defense. And defense requires constant expenditure. The ancient map was pointing towards something entirely different. Not the control of experience, but the capacity to remain present with experience without being consumed by it. Not managing the current, becoming the kind of observer who can stand in the current without being knocked over by it. What becomes available on the other side of this reversal is not a life without difficulty. It is something more precise and more valuable than that. It is a life in which the difficult is no longer automatically overwhelming, in which the body's signals are information rather than emergencies, in which emotional intensity does not automatically collapse into reactivity. The energy that was being consumed in perpetual defense begins to become available for presence. And presence, sustained and clear, is what every tradition that mapped the inner world was ultimately pointing toward as the natural state of a human being who has learned to read their own current. The reversal is not a moment, it is a direction. You turn your attention inward with the quality of an honest witness rather than a disappointed critic. You stop demanding that the energy behave differently, and you begin simply observing how it actually behaves. And in that observation, without any dramatic intervention, something in the system begins to reorganize. Because the energy has always been intelligent. It has always been trying to complete its natural movement. What it needed was not more force. It needed more awareness. The first practical shift is the simplest and the most difficult. Begin to notice where your attention goes without choosing it. Throughout the course of a day, your attention is constantly being pulled by memories, by anticipations, by other people's emotional states, by screens, by worry, by desire. Most people experience this as simply thinking, as the normal background noise of being awake. But if you pause and observe it honestly, you will notice that most of your attention during a given day does not reflect your deliberate choice. It reflects the pull of accumulated pattern. And wherever your attention goes, energy follows. This is not a moral observation. It is a practical one. The beginning of energetic understanding is simply learning to notice, with honesty and without self-judgment, where the attention actually goes. The second shift involves learning to recognize the body's contraction signals as information rather than problems to be overcome. When you feel a tightening in the chest, a gripping in the stomach, a rise of heat in the throat, the trained reflex is to push through it, rationalize it, or suppress it with distraction. The inner shift is to pause instead, to bring attention to that exact location in the body. Not to fix it, not to analyze it, simply to be present with it for a few moments, the way you might be present with someone who is trying to tell you something important. This kind of attention does not guarantee the sensation will dissolve, but it opens the possibility that the body's signal will be received rather than rejected. And a signal that is received begins to change its behavior. The third shift is the pause before reaction. Between any situation and your response to it, there is a space. Most people live as though that space does not exist, as though the reaction is inevitable and immediate. But with practice, that space can be found and inhabited. When you feel the familiar surge of a reaction, whether it is defensiveness, anger, craving, withdrawal, or anxiety, the inner shift is to locate that surge in the body before expressing it outward, to feel where it is, to breathe into that location deliberately. This does not mean suppressing the reaction. It means allowing awareness to enter the system before the pattern completes itself automatically. That brief insertion of awareness is enough to begin changing the current's direction. Breath is the most practical tool available for working with energy in real time, and it requires no special conditions, no equipment, and no belief system. When you are in a state of energetic contraction, your breathing has already changed. It has become shallow, fast, and located high in the chest. The practical shift is simply to notice this and, without forcing anything dramatic, to allow the breath to become slower, slightly deeper, and to feel it moving lower in the body. This is not a technique, it is a return to the body's natural respiratory rhythm that was disrupted by the pattern. And when the breath returns, even partially, the nervous system receives a signal that changes the quality of the entire inner environment. The fifth shift is the withdrawal of energy from unnecessary emotional loops. This requires real honesty. There are thoughts, resentments, hypothetical arguments, imagined scenarios, and memories that you return to repeatedly, not because they serve you, but because the pattern is comfortable in its familiarity, even when it is painful. Each return to these loops is an expenditure of energy. The inner shift is not to force these loops to stop, which rarely works, but to notice the moment the loop begins and to gently redirect attention to something present, something in the immediate body, the breath, a physical sensation, the quality of light in the room. Over time, this redirection trains the attention toward presence rather than pattern, and the loops lose some of their automatic pull. The sixth shift is the most foundational and the most patient. It is the practice of returning to the position of the observer, not the thinker, not the emoter, not the one who is tired or afraid or hopeful or frustrated, the one who notices all of that. The ancient maps all pointed in the different languages and their different symbolic systems toward this one essential capacity, the capacity of the human being to be aware of their own awareness, to observe the self without being completely dissolved into it. This capacity is not mystical. It is available to you right now. It is the quiet presence that exists behind the noise of the ordinary mind, and developing a relationship with that presence, even in small and imperfect ways, may be the single most significant energetic shift a human being can make. The ancient map was never only about energy. Energy was the doorway, but the room behind the doorway was something more fundamental. It was self-knowledge, the kind of self-knowledge that does not come from reading about yourself, but from learning to observe the living system that you are in real time, with honesty, and without the constant need to be something other than what you actually find. Every tradition that produced a map of the inner energetic world was ultimately doing the same thing, trying to give human beings a way to read themselves before the world reads them first, because the world will always offer an interpretation of who you are. And without your own map, you have no choice but to accept its reading as the truth. This is why the control of energy, the promise the thumbnail held out at the beginning of this exploration, is deeper than it first appeared. It is not about increasing output or performing at a higher level. It is not about protecting yourself from other people's influence through mystical barriers. Control of energy, in the sense the ancient maps intended, means the capacity to direct your own attention deliberately, to recognize your own patterns without being unconsciously ruled by them, to inhabit your own body as a living map rather than as a burden to be managed. This is not control in the modern sense. It is sovereignty, the quiet, difficult, non-dramatic sovereignty of a person who has learned to read their own current. And what becomes possible from that place is not a perfect life. It is an honest one. A life in which you are no longer spending your energy primarily on the management of patterns you have never examined. A life in which the body's signals are received rather than overridden. A life in which the ancient map is not a relic from another civilization, but a living document you carry in your own nervous system your own breath, your own heartbeat, your own capacity to pause, to observe, and to choose, even imperfectly, with even a fraction more awareness than you had the day before. That fraction is not small. Over the course of a life, it is everything. The final revelation is this: you were never waiting for the right external conditions to understand your energy. You were waiting for permission to turn your attention inward and trust what you found there. The map was always available. The body has been drawing it for you your entire life. Every tension, every surge of joy, every hollow exhaustion, every wordless knowing, every moment your body told you something your mind refused to hear, was the map completing itself. And you are standing at the threshold of being able to read it. Where do you feel your energy most strongly in the body? Is it in the mind, racing with thought? In the heart, heavy with feeling? In the throat, tense with the unsaid? In the hands, restless with the need to create or reach? In the stomach, tight with something you cannot name? Write it in the comments below. No explanation required, just the location. Because naming where you feel, it is the first act of reading the map. And if someone in your life is carrying the weight of chronic depletion, exhaustion that rest does not fix, an unnamed heaviness they cannot explain, consider sharing this with them. Not as advice, not as a prescription, but as a door. Because some people are ready to see the current. They just need someone to show them that the door exists. Your energy was never random. From the very first moment of this exploration, that was the quiet center of everything being revealed. The exhaustion, the attraction, the fear, the intuition, the pull and the pressure and the sudden silence inside you, none of it was accident. None of it was noise. All of it was the body drawing the map, line by patient line, waiting for the moment when you would stop long enough to look. The body has always been speaking. The current has always been running. The ancient map has always been available, not in libraries, not in hidden scrolls, but in the living architecture of your own inner experience. The only question that remains, the one that only you can answer, is whether you are ready to listen. Not tomorrow, not when life becomes easier, but now, in this breath, in this moment of awareness, because the map is already in your hands and the current has been waiting for you to begin.